So this is one of the many fascinating things in this book. Statistically, apparently, well, as you say, it's 6 times more dangerous, statistically, to be a young man in the United States of America than it is to be a cop. And I think I'm quoting you directly, vastly more dangerous to be a young man in America than to go on a 1-year deployment at a big military base in Afghanistan. So it's not as dangerous as we think it is.
Well, being a young man is way more dangerous than we think it is. I mean, young men are reckless. They test themselves, they do everything that gets people killed. They drink too much, they get into fights, they drive too fast, they jump off of stuff, they try to outrace things. I mean, you name it, young men are doing it. And so the mortality rate is just enormous. And I mean, they're way safer as a cop or as a fireman. And you really do have to, and also the mortality rate at the big bases is virtually zero. Which is why combat soldiers look at the soldiers on those big bases and essentially say, you're not soldiers. We're soldiers, you're something else.
Mm-hmm. Well, you also say that a fifth of the combat experienced by the 70,000 odd NATO soldiers there are in Afghanistan, that the fifth of it is actually fought by 150 people right where you were.
When I was there, a fifth of all the combat in Afghanistan was inside the 6-mile-long Korangal Valley, where Battle Company was, 150 men in Battle Company. Yep, that's right.
But before we go any further, I mean, I did get the impression from the book that you don't think there's any way we're going to win this war.
Actually, that's interesting. The book is kind of a Rorschach test for people's opinions. I don't think...
Great. That's fantastic. I'm really glad to hear that.
No, at current troop levels, well, let me back up a moment. If I can give you a kind of thorough answer to that, because it's an important question. I'd been going to Afghanistan since 1996. 2000, 2001. I was with the Northern Alliance when they took Kabul, backed up by the U.S. Air Force. I was literally getting hugged on the streets of Kabul when strangers found out that I was American, because I was American, and they were so grateful to be relieved of the Taliban regime. And the Taliban were, of course, they understood 9/11. America comes in. America, the biggest power in the world. Finally, this country, Afghanistan, is going to be stabilized. And they were just shocked when the United States left behind 15,000 soldiers. There's 40,000 cops in New York City. They left behind 15,000 soldiers and marched on to Iraq. And the Afghans were like, "Oh my God, are you kidding? Because that's not going to work." And the Soviets came in with 100,000 and it didn't work. What was different for the Americans is that they had the goodwill of the Afghan people. I mean, something like 90% of Afghans were pro-American at that point. And so when I wrote that book, it was quite clear that in the Korangal and in Afghanistan as a whole, all of the problems, all the successes of the insurgency, all of the problems were because it was the NATO effort was underfunded and undermanned, under-resourced, and it's too big and weird a country for those troop levels. So you're right, it's not winnable. The situation that I saw with that amount of resources and men, it was not winnable. The more men they put in, the more winnable it is. I don't know what the level is where it becomes a probability. I don't know that. That level is probably higher than the political will back home, and so it won't happen. But I think militarily, the West, the Allies figured out how to defeat the German army. Like, they can defeat the Taliban. It's not, militarily speaking, it's not that big a problem.
Mm-hmm. You say, civilians balk at recognizing that one of the most traumatic things about combat is having to give it up. War is so obviously evil and wrong that the idea that there could possibly be anything good to it almost feels like a profanity.
Yeah.
So what's the good part of combat? Why do people find it so hard to give up?
Well, these guys come back, and the guys that I was with, they were on a hilltop for a year without internet or phone or running water or cooked food, getting attacked 2 or 3 times a day. They all saw their friends killed. They were all almost killed themselves. I was almost killed out there. It was incredibly hot in the summer. It was swarming with flies. They wore flea collars. There were tarantulas and snakes, and it was horrendous, right? I hope you all believe it. The place was miserable. They come home to the pleasure.
How long between baths, between showers?
A month.
A month.
There was no running water up there, so they just lived in their clothes. They'd walk down to the main base. It was a 2-hour walk away. Burn their clothes because they'd be in shreds. Burn their clothes, get a new set, and walk back. Call their girlfriends and walk back up. It was rough out there. So they come home to the delights and pleasures of civilization. Their base was in Italy, in Vicenza, Italy, and there was all kinds of things for them to do when they got home. And they did that for a few weeks, and they all kind of were puzzled by why they wanted to go back, that they missed Restrepo, that's the name of the outpost. They missed it. They missed being there. And what they missed, movies like The Hurt Locker kind of attribute it to like they're adrenaline junkies, which is a way of kind of pathologizing the response. I think actually there's something much more profound going on. You're taking 19, 20-year-old guys who in civilian life don't have an identity, don't have a clear identity. They don't have a clear purpose in life, in society. They're not necessary to anybody. They're lost. They don't know who they are. And then they go into combat. And all of a sudden, they know exactly who they are. They're the 240 gunner on, in third squad. And they know exactly what's expected of them, which is that they are expected to risk their life or sacrifice their life on behalf of anyone else in the platoon. That's what's expected of them, and everyone else will do that for them. So there's a clarity to their relationships with other people. There's an absoluteness to their identity, which is frankly intoxicating for a 20-year-old. And
even though they beat the crap out of each other before they join the army, these guys are even when they get a new lieutenant. That's their ritual is to beat him up.
Yeah, well, you have to understand that it was really life or death up there, and the only psychological security on that hilltop was knowing that every other guy up there would die for you, to protect you, to save you. That was the only thing psychologically that made any of this doable. And so when new guys came in, or when guys went on leave and came back, they had to demonstrate, if you're not willing to take a beating, you're not going to die for someone. And had any of those guys, that basically the platoon would jump on a guy, hold him down, give him enough of a beating to get his attention, but not really damage him. And had any of those guys said, "Hey guys, cut it out, stop it, I'm not into this," they would have stopped, and that guy would have been forced off that hilltop. And I think in the situation where they were, Chosen Company 1 Valley to the north experienced an 80% casualty rate. 8 out of 10 guys were killed or wounded. That easily could have happened to Battle Company with the guys I was with. In that circumstance, they absolutely had to know that there was no one up there who was going to hesitate under fire to help everyone else.
So when the Taliban are shooting at you, you're not thinking, and the bullets are snapping, as you say, as they go by. You're not thinking to yourself, there's a group of guys who are bonding together. They're supporting each other. They don't want to hurt each other. You're thinking, he wants to kill my best friend.
Absolutely.
That seems slightly inconsistent to me, but I wasn't there.
You mean concerning the other side? If someone's trying to kill you, if someone's trying to kill your brothers, they call each other brothers. The decision to shoot back and make it stop is an incredibly simple one. Nothing simpler than that.
Just not my tribe, right?
They're
not my foursome.
Yeah, they're trying to kill me and my guys. I don't even know who they are. I don't even know why they're shooting at us. The decision to shoot back is there is no moral dilemma there. There's nothing. It's complete instinct, and the reason we exist as a species is because for tens of thousands of years we've been reacting that way in those situations.